Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What stuff? At the top of what?
Mm-hmm.
What stuff?
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so thankful that we have a dynamic group of education professionals from the Saginaw area joining us tonight. So I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us on the call, but I also want to say thank you for the work that you all do in our community. There's such value in coming together, and I just wanted to provide a space that we could share, so I could listen and you could share your concerns and thoughts with me about education. We know that meeting via Zoom is something that's new for all of us, but this is our new normal. So we're going to continue to meet like this. But the purpose of this discussion is really for me to listen to your thoughts, your concerns, some assistance that you might need in your classroom. We do have some prepared questions, but folks that are dialing in and who are on the line, if you wanted to be recognized for a comment, question, or concern, please hit *9, and that will put you in the queue. And you can also, if you're joining us via Zoom, you can also type your questions in the comment section below. I want to make sure that everybody does know that you can stream this live at clintbryant.com/conversations. That's clintbryant.com/conversations. So I'm looking forward to your questions and answers. As I said, we have some questions that are prepared already. But some basic facts that we all know about Michigan. Michigan is 37th as it relates to educational proficiency in out of our 50 states. So we have to do something. Michigan, we're going to talk a little bit about some of my ideas for really reinvesting, and that's what we need in Michigan, especially when you look at how the funding is through the lottery, through the gas and weight tax. It's just not, we need to place a real value on education, because we know that that is for our kids to have the best future that they can. I mean, that's what they need. They have to have some form of education, whether it's going on to secondary or doing some kind of CTE, something like that. But yeah, we definitely need to have this conversation. So I'm glad that we have educators from all over Saginaw County joining us tonight. I've gathered this panel together to strategize and develop a clear understanding about what we need to do to move forward. We're no longer going to accept being 37th out of 50 states. And when you dig a little deeper and you start talking about pre-K, right now we're at 29, but some of the reports that we're getting in, we're falling lower and lower. And when you're already low in the wake of this COVID crisis, we know that our students are going to need as much help, and our teachers are going to need resources. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us tonight. For those of you who are tuning in, let me go ahead and introduce some of the members of our panel. We have a really dynamic group of education professionals here in Saginaw County. First of all, we have Mr. Jason Holder. Jason Holder currently works at SEC. He is the Career Development Facilitator for the Career Complex and our Skill Center. So we're excited to have Jason on the line with us. Hey, Jason. And we have Miss Arshan Prater Baldwin. She's secondary, post-secondary educator, and she works at Saginaw's Success Academy. They're doing phenomenal work over there. It seems like every week before the COVID crisis kind of took over, we're seeing positive stories about what was some of the work that you guys were doing over at our Success Academy. Great work. Definitely going to be relying on you for some questions and answers about what we can do to help our students, as they're getting close to graduation. But I'm just so proud of all the things that you have done. So thank you for joining us, Arshan. And we do have Teresa Lamonic. She's joining us. She's a teacher consultant for the emotionally impaired. I know she started her career off, I believe, at Houghton Jones Elementary School. So it's great to have her. After her time with the district, she did accept that position with the Saginaw ISD. So she is countywide. So I know there are a number of educators and principals and folks who work in our schools who really rely on the work that Teresa does. That was one of my favorite groups to work with. I always chose to work in either the EI classroom or drive the EI school bus, and I miss our babies, and it's good to see them as we do in the grocery stores and throughout the community. So thank you, Teresa, for joining us tonight. And finally, last but not least, we have Sue Rutherford. She's UNISERV Director for the Michigan Education Association. She does a lot of work with contracts and making sure that our teachers get a fair shot and a fair shake. And it's definitely not easy work that she does, but we're so thankful that we have her as an advocate for our educators and for our students. So that's our dynamic group of panelists tonight. So I'm looking forward to jumping into some questions. So let's just get right on into it. And again, if you're joining us on Zoom, go ahead and type your questions in the comment section below. And if you are joining us on a call, you can hit *9 and you'll be placed in the queue. But one of the first questions that I had, I'm going to, share some of my ideas and thoughts a little bit later. But one of the things I wanted to touch on was resources and funding. There's no denying that our teachers are phenomenal and they do great work. But what I want to know is, are we doing enough to attract and retain the best talent for our children? So I could start with Sue and Teresa. I'm going to open it. It'll be opened up to everybody, and I'll throw that question to you. But so the question is, are we doing enough to attract and retain the best talent for our children? Sue?
Yep. Well, I'm going to say that I think that Saginaw has made some really good strides in trying to attract, educators. And when I say educators, I don't just mean teachers, because everybody that works for the school system is an educator of some sort. So right now, we've been struggling with filling positions at every level, whether it's food service, custodial maintenance, paraprofessionals, or teachers in the classroom. There is just a shortage everywhere. And I think that Saginaw has really looked at that issue and tried to create salary schedules, et cetera, that try and attract more people. But our reality is that we work with some very challenging students, and it is often difficult to get people who are up for that challenge or who are interested in that kind of a challenge. So we struggle with vacancies every year, all year long. And so that I consider that to be a real challenge and a real problem for our district as we move forward. And the state in general. It's not just in Saginaw. I will say that that's a statewide problem. In fact, it's a nationwide problem. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sue. Let's go to Arshan.
Well, I think in recent years, more effort has been given to get teachers in. You know, Saginaw Valley has I believe it's called the ACER program. I know our district is working with Saginaw Valley to get those teachers. In fact, my best friend left her job to become a teacher. She's currently subbing, but she's in the Saginaw Valley program because she finally decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it. You know, she is an accountant by trade, and so I think we're doing more now. When I became a teacher, I would say no. In fact, I was on that 9% pay cut. It was rough for a new teacher. It was extremely rough, but I would say that we are doing more now to draw in that talent. And even though we're doing more now, there's still so much more that we can do. And I think it's just one step at a time as we get more funding, as we train, administrators on the next level to support, our new teachers. Sue said that we have some of the most challenging students. I probably have the most challenging students in our district. And what works best for us is that we have a really, really good team, and so prior to, this, it was just me and I had Jason Holder, he was my guy at Success Academy when it was just us, but I think having a really good team, taking the opportunity to build them up are some things to build our team up, our teachers and all staff to meet the needs of students is what we have to do. Funding is nice and it works great, but if we just dump more money into the same old junk, it's no good. Yeah,
you hit that you hit that right on the head. You hit that right on. I don't know how we can get have a better answer than that, but I think you did a great job. I mean, and we are just to remember that you can view this conversation on clintbryant.com. We're live for YouTube as well. But I remember when I was subbing, and the reason I went into transportation is because I could nearly make twice as much money and work half as much. And it just made sense. It wasn't because I didn't value it, but it's definitely an investment. It's a service. I mean, and I think that folks are realizing that more and more. But I do have a question I'm going to pose for all of you, but I'm going to start with Teresa and then go to Jason. And that question is, what is the most pressing issue facing our children and our students in Saginaw as we close out this 2020 school year and enter into the next year. We know that so many of our students are already behind the 8 ball. I know our teachers and some of the support staff have done a great job of making sure that our kids have meals, making sure that they've received their packets or tablets. But we still have a whole summer to go through. We still have some of the school year that's remaining. So my question that I'm going to pose first to Jason and Teresa is, what is the most pressing issue facing our kids as we prepare for them to come back next year?
Well, I'll respond first if that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, from my perspective, and I think nobody on the panel would disagree with this, but it's a little bit closer to my heart, because of what I do every day when I am in the schools, is the social emotional. And we know that this pandemic has taken a huge toll on families and students. And then to not have that consistency of school and a schedule that they rely on tremendously. I mean, I know that I see kids having struggles around long breaks before summer, but I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the fall to get kids back into this routine and feeling comfortable and safe in the schools with what they're gone through in this short period of time. So that to me seems like the biggest problem, because if kids don't feel safe and secure in schools, there's no learning. We all know that no learning is happening, and we know they're behind already academically, and now socially, emotionally, they're spent. So we really have to figure out ways to beef up that social emotional learning for our kids.
Thanks, T. Jason, what are your thoughts, brother?
I would say my main concern is the amount of time the students will be at home. We know students need a lot of support when they walk through our doors, emotionally, because you never really know what goes on in the students' home lives. So if we have the students who do not have the best of circumstances at home, what are they actually going through right now? And just trying to figure out how we can support them. Again, they come in with hard shells and we have to break them so they can get to a point where they are receptive to learning. And a lot of work is going to go undone over these next few months leading up until the fall. And, we love as educators having a break as well. So I would say that break we had for the week off before spring break, that was very refreshing. Students, they look forward to that as well, but how much of the learning is being retained? And that's always a question over the summer. And now the students are going to be at home for an extended period of time. How much are we supporting them in their learning so that they will not come back in the fall that much more behind?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Arshan, and then we'll go to Sue.
I totally agree with Teresa and Jason. That social emotional piece is huge. I would say in our area, mostly, for our district, I can't speak for any other district because I haven't worked there, but we deal with kids who have so much trauma, and COVID-19 has added a layer of trauma to the issues they already have, right? And so, my thing is, are we gonna have kids afraid to come to school? Are we gonna have kids uneasy because they haven't been in school? What does that look like? I'm concerned about what services we will provide. We already are low on social workers and things like that. Will we have what we need to meet the emotional needs of our students? I know we've done tons of training and things like that, but the reality is that we're sometimes still not equipped to meet those emotional needs of students. And I almost feel like we need a third party to come in, just to help with that. Prior to this, we had issues with trauma. Prior to this, our students had environmental, issues in their environment. it's saddening to think that it could be 5 times, 10 times worse come August or September. And you know, I think about it a lot, and I wonder what that does look like for us as educators and how we meet the needs of our students, not just academically, because the reality is if we don't meet their needs emotionally, and if we don't meet them where they are, we can't teach them, and we're not going to be able to teach them.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I can't tell you how many times my students would either get on the bus or they would enter a classroom and you could just hear their stomachs grumbling. You know, you were probably the first adult that they had seen since you dropped them off or they left your classroom the day before. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. And that's why I think working in transportation, I just feel like God places you where you need to be. And to be able to see where our students live is a whole nother component to this piece of education, because so much of it is emotional, talking about the environment. I'm right there with you. I do want to get a question in for Sue. So we're going to shift a little bit. I'm a supporter of protecting pensions. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I do in my day job. We work with contracts and defending public employees. So I wanted to throw this question to Sue. Do you have any thoughts on what might be done to ensure that our teachers' pensions are protected? We've seen before this whole COVID pandemic started to unfold. There was talk about borrowing some money and shifting money and things like that as it related to teachers' pensions. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Sue, and Teresa, because I know both of you do some work at the bargaining table. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that with pensions in Michigan for public employees and our teachers.
Well, I think that your question about pensions is directly related to the lack of staffing, the problems that we have with staffing. The reality is when the state started allowing the privatization of non-instructional services, that's when the pension system really started to have issues, because the fact of the matter is although you're not paying pensions on those employees that are privatized, you think you're saving money, but what you're in essence doing is it's just doubled, tripled, quadrupled how much you're paying for the people that are part of the pension system. So you're weakening the pension system every time you privatize a position. And the amount of money you're saving really is not a savings in reality. And I think that if you look at what's happened to our pension system, people who go into the educational field now are not guaranteed a pension. There's several different options. Since 2010, there are, I think, 7 different pension systems that you can be a part of. 5 or 7, something like that. And currently, people who are coming into education now do not have access to any health care when they are retired. Well, one of the things that we always said is teachers didn't make a great deal of money. People who worked in the field, bus drivers weren't getting rich, but when you retired, you had a guaranteed pension and you had guaranteed health insurance. They no longer have that. So that's going to stop them from thinking, I think, about coming into this field, because they can go to Aldi's or some of the other places here in the area and make $11.25 or $11.50 an hour, which is what a paraprofessional makes working with children every day. So if that's all you're going to be able to make, and it's not a full-time position and you can't get more hours or anything like that, then you're maybe going to think twice about doing that. So I worry about the pension system because I think that that is something that people depend on, and we're weakening it every time we change the system and every time we privatize another part of it. So.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and my biggest thing is that they're constitutionally protected. They're supposed to be constitutionally
Right.
protected in Michigan. Michigan is home of the labor movement. We put the world on wheels, you know, and it's just a shame after 2010 and the previous administration, what they had done with the best practice legislation, incentivizing our school districts with an extra $700 per pupil. You know, it's just, it hurts communities like ours, like Flint and Saginaw, up the I-75 corridor,
Right.
and across the state. I mean, rural Michigan has these issues as well, especially with
Yes, they do.
recruitment.
And
But
that's
let me
going to be a big problem, you know, like Arshan and Teresa said, the traumatized child, you know, what we're dealing with now are kids who they don't necessarily have access to the devices they need to keep up with their schoolwork, even if they want to, even if their parents are able to help them. And many of our parents want to help their kids, but they don't have the tools necessary. And so that creates even more stress for them that they're not going to keep up and they worry about that. So that the trauma is real for them. It's
and
on multiple layers, multiple levels.
many and grandparents as well. I mean, in our community, with my
Yes.
grandmother raising 3 of her grandkids, and then with not having access to broadband, not having access to the internet like we do here.
Right.
I was going to ask you that question, T, but I have another one that I wanted to pose to you instead. The question, we do have Alyssa who's on the line. So hello, Alyssa. Hope you're doing well. And the question is, how are we going to better support the teachers? Teachers are going to have to support the socio-emotional needs of students, which will increase because of the virus, and be required to increase test scores. What can be done to support teachers so they don't burn out? So after Teresa's done, if there's anybody who would love to join in, go right ahead. So I wanted to pose that to you, Teresa. What can be done to support our teachers with the socio-emotional needs of students, and still have, you know, test scores that they got to be cognizant of? So we just want to make sure that they don't burn out. So we'll go to Teresa first, and then I'm going to go to Jason. Okay.
Actually, that's an excellent question. And I shame on me for not bringing that up when we were talking about the needs, because we talk about the students, but the staff are the ones that are working with students, and they've got to be okay to be able to be teaching the kids how to be okay socially, emotionally. You know, part of my job, well, majority of my job is to work with staff and give them that social emotional support, and give them the techniques and strategies, not only for their own self-care, but for our students' self-care, so that they are all in a good place and they're safe and they're secure and they're able to teach and perform well, and the kids are able to learn. So I agree that first and foremost, we always kind of gone back and forth, my colleagues and I, about like always kind of get student centered. And I'm not saying that that's not what we should be doing, but let's be honest, we've got to work with the adults. The adults have to be okay first. And there's a lot of their staff that are going through trauma and experiences that are causing them to have difficulties in the classroom. And so it's two-sided. I mean, we've got to support both students and staff.
Absolutely, T. We do have a number of questions coming in, and I want to make sure that our listeners know that I'm committed to answering all those questions. Maybe not necessarily on our Zoom call tonight for our block of time, but I'll make sure that I answer those questions, and we will have a follow-up conversation on Thursday. We're going to be bringing some parents into the conversation, but I really wanted to focus on our teachers, because I know, I mean, having worked in Saginaw Public Schools for over 10 years, you see a lot. You see a lot, and I think that our conversation has to be focused on our students, but also our teachers as well. So, Jason, let me pose that question to you. What are your thoughts on what we can do to be supporting teachers and making sure that they're well themselves and that they don't burn out?
That's a great question, and I know myself personally, and Arshan has been in those trainings as well with Teresa, learning about trauma and deepen having a more of an understanding what children are going through, but understanding that adults go through trauma as well. We need emotional support, and sometimes it's difficult to to check yourself at the door, but you have to understand that the students look up to us. You know, all students, they just want to be loved, and it's very rare that you come across an instructor like Arshan who she has the ability to love on students no matter what she faces on a daily basis. So again, just those trainings are out there, and Teresa, you guys do an amazing job with those trainings, and you really challenge us as instructors and educators to make sure that we are aware of our mental health, and making sure that we know that those trainings are out there and we are supported. So I think that we have been doing a great job with that, and just having those trainings accessible to you know, employees throughout our district. That's only going to help bring that awareness.
Absolutely. I think mental health is key. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I wanted to talk about school safety. Thankfully, Michigan has been largely spared in regards to many unfortunate school massacres that have happened across the country. I know when we were in, before COVID had happened, it seemed like every week, you know, there was tragedy that happened across this country as it came to these school massacres. But I wanted to reach out to you guys to get your expertise. Do you think that we are doing all that we can to ensure the safety of our students? I know that I've kicked some plans back to our superintendent because it's important. And I know that they can be dragged in many other areas, our campus support professionals. But I do believe that we need to have a campus officer in each of our buildings. But I just wanted to reach out to you guys and see what are some of the strategies that we can employ or that we should be advocating for school safety. We can start with, let's go with Arshan, and then we'll go to Sue.
Well, I think that because of the different tragedies that we've had around the world, that we have been a little more vigilant in making sure that we run our drills. And, you know, at every school, I've been at Saginaw High, the Saginaw Career Complex, and now the Success Academy has their own building, and we've always run the drills. We do have campus security. Do I think it's enough? No, not necessarily for the students per se, but to make sure that we protect our students. I know that when some things went down, they started to check to make sure that we were securing our buildings properly. We could use more funding to make sure that that happens and that things are as they should be. Everything can always be better. I'll just put it like that. We can always do better. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Arshan. Sue, is there anything that you think or any strategies that you've employed, or how can we best advocate for safe schools? We know that our schools are where, I mean, as Teresa said, I mean, she said it perfect. Schools are safe places. Schools are, you know, where our kids not only get an education, but they're getting meals. We're tying their shoes. We're, you know, giving them some home training, you know, and that should be the one place that they can feel comfortable. So, I mean, I just wanted to pose that question to you, Sue, because I know we've had conversations in the past about school safety. So I just wanted to reach out to you if you could give us some advice on that.
Well, I think that there are still several buildings in the district that I'm concerned about, because there are ways for parents to get into the building, or I should say outsiders to get into the building without having to go through the office, without having to go through any security of any kind. And that concerns me. And so that really comes down to, we've got to look at some of our structures and figure out how we can, you know, make them so that they are safer places that way. I know I've talked with the superintendent and different people about, having more people in the building, et cetera. But again, we come down to finding the people. It's really an issue of often the district is willing to put a new person in there or hire another person, but there just isn't anybody to hire. And so until we can figure out a way to overcome that, I'm not sure how we can get to it. But I do think that there are still some buildings that pose problems for some of our students. But I will say that in general, I think our buildings are fairly safe. I'm in all the buildings all of the time. I taught at Saginaw High. I taught at, practically every building that's closed. I taught at it. I don't know if that's my fault or not, but at any rate. And so I do think that there are, our staff, I think our administrators and all the people that work for us really are doing everything they can. But, like Arshan said, it's always something that can be improved. There's always room for improvement on anything you're doing. So I think we have a little ways to go yet. You're on mute.
There we go. I'm still adjusting to our Zoom. I did have a few today, but I wanted to pose this question to Jason because he works at the career complex. And, there's a lot of talk about potentially transforming education so that it more greatly reflects the needs of the expanding and ever-growing economy. I mean, things are changing. And a lot of it is cyclical. So we need to make sure that our students can adapt. There's a few plans that I have that I'll be reaching out to not only Dr. Roberts, but I think we need to focus on statewide. So I just wanted to ask Jason, since you're at the career complex, do you think there's some things in our district that we can do to just expand that conversation, whether it involves apprenticeships, internships? Can you give me an idea of some of the programs that you guys are doing? I know that we often see our students at the Career Center do very well in some specific areas, especially as it comes to, excuse me, like food service and auto body. We had a number of them join us at council. It seemed like every 6 months they were having a competition and doing well. But I wanted to, Jason, can you just give us an idea of, how is education evolving into, just not, I guess career technical education is where I want to go. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that and some of the things that you guys have instituted. I know you work really close with Mr. Little over at SCC. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing and working on education a little bit differently so our students are prepared for the future? They're ready.
Sure. A lot of our students, they like to be, more hands-on. So coming over to the Saginaw Career Complex, that will give them 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, to work on some hands-on learning and help prepare them for their future. All of our programs have amazing partnership with local businesses in our county. Some of our partners are the Local 85 for our welding students. Mm-hmm. So it's a great partnership with Local 85. Justin Palmerville, he's been awesome and helping prepare our students for the next level in apprenticeships. So students can graduate from high school and walk into a job in their career field or an apprenticeship where they are getting paid to learn. And again, they're working with their hands. They are really owning their skills at SEC. So students can leave with industry certifications. They can leave with college credit. So depending on their track, we are preparing them for college or the next step, which is employment.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Now our students, I want to stay with you just for another second, Jason. When are students eligible to attend SCC? Is it just junior? Can they start in junior year? Is it just senior year?
Students are eligible to come over to the Saginaw Career Complex in their junior and senior year. We recommend that students come over because of a lot of our programs are 2-year programs. First year, they learn a lot of entry-level skills, and in their second year, they will get more hands-on training. They will get some work-based learning opportunities, and they dive a little bit deeper into the program. And that's where they really start building connections with employers and earning those college credits. So again, 2-year programs, and we encourage students in their sophomore year to explore SEC. So we invite all 10th graders countywide to SEC so they can explore our programs and see what our programs are about.
Yeah, and Clint, just I'd like to add,
Yeah.
some of those programs they have over there, like the welding program, the nursing program, the culinary arts. I mean, they're like nationally known programs. We've had students that from SEC go to competitions and go quite high in the areas and win awards, that kind of stuff. Those are some programs that are really helping our kids out a lot. So those are great programs. We just need to get the word out a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, we got a question that came in for you. What are some of the funding barriers that prevent the expansion of SEC and some of the programs?
That would definitely be a great question for our principal, Mr. Little. So that's the conversation I will definitely have with him. But I know with the addition of the Marshall Plan and money from the millage, we have been able to update our programs. We've been able to add some state-of-the-art equipment for each of our programs. We've also added a couple of new programs that are going to be offered this fall, which is Entrepreneurship Academy, which is going to be held at the SVRC Marketplace. We are going to reopen Auto Tech. So we do have some great programs, physical therapy assistant program. So we are expanding our offerings at SEC, and each one takes time, and we go from labor trends. So there has to be a demand for a particular program for us to be able to expand a program or open up new programs.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on, Jason. We've had probably the greatest investment within the last couple of years as it relates to CTE. And I think Saginaw is positioned very well by where we're located and just the resources that we have. We have to tap into them a little bit more. You mentioned public-private partnerships. That's spot on. That is spot on. I worked with CMU Medical School. We're trying to get a medical pipeline off of the ground. We're still working on that. But I think it just goes to collaboration. I mean, I would love to see SEC develop an agriculture program. I think that would be phenomenal. I mean, M13 that runs right through the heart of downtown and through the 95th district is a transportation gold route. It's an agricultural gold route. So, I mean, it's a shame that we live in a food desert. We have an agricultural gold route that runs right through. So why are we not training our students and equipping them if they would like to? Things are just ever developing as it comes to farming. So it looks a little bit different, I think, than most people would think. So that's one of the things that I would like to work on. But we do have a message that came in that says, I think that some of the safety behavior and academic issues can be resolved by building positive relationships with students and families, taking time to let them know that staff sincerely care because they can always spot the fake. And I think that goes back to kind of what Jason was talking about breaking that shell. But let me bring in Teresa and Arshan on this about what we can do to make sure that we're, as people in education, to ensure that we are developing genuine relationships. So let's start with T, and then we'll go to Arshan.
Well, honestly, that's a conversation that I have with a lot of staff. And it goes back to them being in more of a burned out mode and coming off like, you know, fake or not caring, but because they're not taking care of themselves, they're or they're trying to hide what they're dealing with. And I try to tell staff, like, without going into details, let those students know that you're experiencing things too, and that what it's like for you emotionally. How better for kids to learn that. I think staff struggle with that and balancing, and I think that sometimes you get teachers that come off like they're uncaring or they're fake. And bottom line is that they really do want, they're in this job for a reason. They want to teach, they want to educate, they want to help kids. Bottom line is it's just taking care of themselves and figuring out how to make that balance better.
I know over time, we've seen some of our students who have not made it. And that's takes a very emotional toll, because I think over time, you do develop those relationships if you're in this for the right reason. But let me go to Arsham, because I know this is a lot of the work that you do is solely based on relationship and making sure that you're able to, you know, crack that egg.
Well, I'd say I'm probably a little more unorthodox in how I carry out things. Sue definitely would disagree. No, but no, I am very unorthodox. I don't mind calling, texting me all the time. I always have my phone. I maintain good relationships. I think one thing that works in my favor is that I come from their neighborhoods. I know most of their families. I'm very involved in the community. And so I take the time to not only build relationships with my students, but with their parents as well. I connect with families, if they need something. And I am a connector is who I am. I connect people to resources. It's natural for me, and I'm very connected in the community. So if there's anything that I can do for families, I try to do that. But if you don't take the time to get to know your families, if you don't build relationships with your families, they don't trust you enough to come to you with their issues. They don't trust you enough to say, hey, I'm struggling right now. We don't have water. Students don't trust you enough to say, I know I'm supposed to take the SAT today, but someone shot up my house last night and I can't focus and I haven't eaten this morning, and so on and so forth. I think that you have to hit the ground running. As teachers, we all have issues. We're human. And that's one thing we have to understand, is that we are all human. We have to take care of ourselves mentally and emotionally, because we are no good to our students if we don't. And so, the best part, the most important part is the relationships that I built with my students. I know many of their children, so most of my students are grown now, and we have really good relationships, and they still call me about job interviews, and they want my input, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So I become like this auntie, or some of my students call me mom, or whatever. It's so important to be able to do that. It's easier to educate them when they know that you love them, when they know that you care. It really is the most important piece, and it is the foundation.
And it's the most rewarding. It is the absolute, I'm getting emotional just talking about it, because I'm going through my mind. I remember there was one time I was picking up a boy over on 17th and Ansley. I'll never forget it. He gave me a piece of cornbread. The cornbread was so hard. I'm telling you, it was 6:30 in the morning. It was dark, but it was all that he had. And I tell you what, I was a mess the rest of the day. It's what we do. And I think when you lead with your heart and your head, you have to use both. It definitely can take a toll, but it's the most rewarding. We did get a question that came in from Jackie, and it said, Clint, you spoke about the need to restructure funding Does your plan include funding for non-public schools? Currently, the only source of funding to non-public schools is through shared time. Would you be in favor of continuing this funding stream and or other types of funding? And I guess the short answer is maybe. I'm a strong supporter of public education. That's where I come from. I've seen some of the not so good sides when our students who are not subject, I've seen them be denied admission, first of all. But sometimes when they come back to us, they're not how they left it. They're even further behind. So we'll have to look into that funding. And I just don't think that for-profit schools, I mean, we have to have a serious conversation. I recognize that they're not going anywhere, but our public schools are where the greatest amount of need is. That's what we're seeing. We do have some other questions. We have a few more that are coming in, so please keep them coming in. And remember, you can hit *9 if you're on our call, and then if you're in Zoom, you can throw them into our chat. Let's see. One of the other ones was from, okay. Presently, teacher education, especially secondary programs, are not meeting the demand for the teachers needed. What are some of your ideas for increasing the number of future educators? And I do have an idea for that, but I want to throw that question to you: is how do we build capacity and have shape educators for the future? I mean, one of the plans that I have is a grant program, and that would be, a $1,000 grant program, or $5,000 grant program for 1,000 teachers in Michigan. And I think that's just the start. Once you look at recertifying, that was another reason that I decided that I could not be a teacher, is because not only do you have that student teaching component, but then you always have to go back and continually recertify. And I knew the amount of college debt that I already had. So I had to quick decide on a major and go into something that was a little less conventional. But I'm going to throw this to Sue, and I want to throw it to Jason, because me and Jason spent many years together as we were kind of starting out getting into education. So let me start with T, and then we'll go to Jason. What can we do to build capacity and really recruit educators for the future?
Well, I think we need to start looking at the student loan debt that people are coming out of college with. And, as I said in my comment, when I respond to the chat, you cannot graduate from college with $60,000 to $100,000 in student loan debt when you're only going to make $40,000 a year.
Amen.
The recertification has been addressed to some extent because the state does now allow professional development hours to count towards your recertification. So once you've been teaching for a couple of years, I mean, you do need to take maybe a reading class or something along that line. But you can get recertified now through professional development hours or sketches, that kind of thing. But I do think that the student loan debt that's the biggest issue. We cannot ask people to graduate, like I say, and this fall, my office offered a student loan debt repayment workshop and talked about how you can get some of your student loan debt paid off and stuff like that. And I'm not kidding when I say on average, and there were 50 to 60 people there, on average, the student loan debt was between $60,000 and $100,000. I have people retiring and they still owe on their student loans because they started, teaching as a second career maybe, and the debt is just so great. And they went back and got a master's maybe or something along that line. We want highly qualified, well-educated teachers. That requires more college usually, but you can't ask them to do that when they're paying $1,500 to $2,000 for a class. And again, they don't even make that in a pay period or a month. you know.
Mhm.
So I really think that's where we have to look at it is we have to figure out a way to help kids get, if they, you know, if education is where they want to go, how they can do that without becoming, you know, broke for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, let me toss that to you, Jason.
So at the Saginaw Career Complex, we do have a careers in education program. So that program it's an amazing program, especially if students are interested in becoming a teacher, working in social work or counseling. And something new that we are offering is our Teacher Academy, which is a partnership with Saginaw Valley. So students will stay on for a 13th year, and they will be taking courses at Saginaw Valley, but they won't have to pay for them. They will still be enrolled in the careers and education program at the Saginaw Career Complex, and they can earn up to, I believe, 30 plus credits in that 13th year that will be applied to their college transcript. So that's going to get them, out of the door with a less debt that they would have to occur if they would graduate and then enroll in the program at Saginaw Valley. So that is sort of being addressed with that Teacher Academy, and it seems to be very popular. We have several students who chose to go through that program this year, and hopefully it will continue to be a success and we can recruit more students into that program and continue to see them enroll in Saginaw Valley in their education department, and we can get them out in the field earlier.
Absolutely. And we have, and you can visit clintbryant.com for more information about our policy agenda. We have a good amount of information that's out there. But one of the things that you'll find in my policy agenda as it relates to education is the fact that Michigan in a previous administration had got rid of the Michigan Loan Program for students. And we know that we need to fix and restructure that entire program so that students have access to a partially subsidized option. And that's just, it needs to happen. So we have some really cool things. I'm just excited about it because that's what gets me up in the morning, is knowing that we're working and we're fighting to make this better. Not only our community, which we love, Saginaw's beloved, but our state as well. You know, Michigan should not be falling behind the way that we are. But what I do know is that with folks like you, each of you who give so much of your time, of your resources, to making sure that and I've just seen it. I've seen it in each and every one of our panelists. And that's why you guys have a great relationship with students and staff. I did want to let you guys know this is part one of our conversation, and I hope that each of you will join us on Thursday. There's many other places, or not many other places as you might be, because you're where everyone is at home. But there's many other things that you could be doing. And remember, if you do have any more questions for the remainder of our time tonight, you can still put them in. You could hit *9 if you want to leave us a message. I'm committed to answering each of those questions because this is a subject that not 1, 2, 10, or 20 people can tackle. We have got to work together, even sometimes across party lines. Not sure. I know that our folks sometimes on the education committee have a very different view. But I think what we need is a legislator from this area who's worked in public education and who understands what it's like to grow up, and sometimes your stomach is a little grumbly, or, you know, some of the different intricacies of trauma that our students face. So I'm so thankful to each of you guys for joining me tonight on this panel because we've seen it. We've laughed together, we've cried together many a times about our kids, and that's how we refer to them here in Saginaw, that they're our kids. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this call tonight. for our stakeholder conversation. Don't forget to tune in Thursday at 7. That conversation will be Facebook Live. We have another dynamic group of education professionals, so I'm really looking forward to that. I appreciate everyone for joining us. And remember, you can visit clintbryant.com, or you can text Clint to 22999 to connect with us. And you can look at our policy agenda. You can get yard signs. You can say, well, what roundtable is next, or what dinner and dialogue is coming up, because we want to make sure at this time that's so unique that we're still able to connect. Also, I wanted to let everyone know my social media handle, just in case you need to reach out, is at Clint Bryant MI. So other than that, we do have some questions that are still coming in, and we're committed to answering those. It'll probably just be a little bit different. It won't be on our Facebook Live. But again, I cannot say thank you enough to everybody who is joining us, our strong educators. You guys do such phenomenal work, and just remember, take time for yourself. I know we're doing a little bit of transitioning right now with lesson plans and other things, but it really means a lot to me that you joined us. So I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And hopefully we can connect again real soon. So everyone have a great night and be well.
Thanks, Clint.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good seeing you all.
Good seeing you as well.